I am Josephina Tamayo, and I am the vice president of our organization. So first and foremost, I want to welcome you all to our March meeting, and we're looking forward to hearing from some great speakers. Wonderful, wonderful speakers today. We have Mr. William Butler, and we have Ms. Autumn Calder. Mr. Butler is an accomplished real estate project and portfolio manager with over 30 years of experience partnering with high net worth private, corporate, and institutional clients throughout the United States on projects ranging from commercial portfolios, mixed-use facilities, and residential development. As founder and principal of Real Estate.Thank, REI, Mr. Butler works closely with clients to assess needs, clarify goals, design comprehensive development solutions, and manage programs to strategically reposition assets, brand properties, and maximize real estate portfolios valued up to $100 million.
It costs a lot of money.
That costs a lot of money. Wow. Wow. I did it all in one breath. Aren't you impressed? Okay. And then we have Ms. Autumn Calder. We coordinated colors this morning, as you all can see, is the director of Blueprint, Leon County City of Tallahassee agency responsible for building projects funded by the local penny sales tax. As the director, she manages a multidisciplinary staff and delivers projects that involve multiple real estate developments and planning, and leverages public investments in parks, transportation facilities, and stormwater infrastructure, and cultivates hometown pride, increased economic development, and recognition at the national level. Mr. Butler, she is a Tallahassee native, and she earned her master's degree in urban and regional planning. Mr. Butler and Ms. Calder will share their perspective, his perspective on the downtown Tallahassee's development perspective. And they will be taking questions. I think I've told them this is their presentation. They can run it as they wish. And we would welcome them with a big round of applause. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Appreciative to be here. My office is in downtown. I work downtown. I have great appreciation for downtown Tallahassee. And when Cheryl first reached out to me several months ago and asked me to come and speak to this group, we talked a little bit about what I might speak to and about, and some of the projects that I'm working on, and maybe some of the things that FSU is doing, because I represent them on many major projects as well. But as I really started thinking about this presentation, and I also looked at who has already been here, and Sue Dick has been here, and I love Sue. I have the proud pleasure of saying I hired Sue at the Chamber a long time ago. First female president of the Chamber ever, so I got that done. That was fabulous, and she has served us well. Sean McIntyre was also here, I saw, NAP. He's a client. I work with Sean on all the projects that he has done. And I've given sort of these kinds of presentations often in this community, at the Chamber retreats, and so sometimes I feel like it's redundant. We talk about a lot of the same projects, and really it got me thinking, what's driving some of the dollars and some of the real key private sector projects that are occurring in this market. And a lot of it is the private-public partnership that we've got working right now, specifically with Blueprint, but also with local government, city and county. But I really felt it was important to have Autumn here to speak to some of the driving forces that you may or may not know about, but you may not understand them as thoroughly as you might like to, because I will advocate that they are having and will continue to have a significant impact on what happens in downtown Tallahassee and all of Tallahassee for that matter. So we're going to go through some of sort of the cause and effects. You know, this was the public side, and then here's how the private side responded. Here's the public, here's the private, and then what's kind of behind the curtain, what might be or what is scheduled to come next. You can begin to think about what that's going to create. But the one thing that I would ask you guys to think about, I am of the opinion that we have to redefine our downtown. Okay, we have always thought of downtown Tallahassee as to what I now call Capitol Hill. And it's the little bitty geography up on top of the hill, and everything else was something else. Right? It was South Monroe, it was North Monroe, FSU, whatever. That's changing, folks. And if we look at it as a larger, vibrant, or more vibrant downtown with more offerings, more opportunities for entertainment, more hospitality opportunities, we're going to attract more people, we're going to have more programming, we're going to have more events, and there's going to be more opportunities for all of us who operate in this town to make more money. And I think that's kind of this part of at least the .com side of the discussion. I know the .gov and the .edu have a little different agenda, but I think most of you guys are on the .com side. So I want you, as we go through this, to think about that. I mean, I would argue that Railroad Square is part of a greater downtown Tallahassee and not Railroad Square on an island. Okay, College Town is just a borough of the greater downtown Tallahassee. Cascades Park is a borough, and they're all going to develop their own fabric and their own themes, and that's what we want, okay? Because that makes us a more interesting place, and not just white buildings with lobbyists running around downtown. Nothing against white buildings and lobbyists. They throw a lot of money through our economy. It's all good, but we got to be more than that, okay? To be interesting, to keep what we manufacture in Tallahassee. It's young minds. Historically, we've exported 99.9% of them, and the rest of them are serving bar somewhere. We've got to create a better net to keep those folks, the creative folks in Tallahassee. And if you create an interesting, vibrant downtown, from a living, from an entertainment, from a dining, all that, arts, you'll keep more. If we just keep 2 or 3%, we're going to have a very healthy, creative economy in Tallahassee. So this Autumn and what she's responsible for is a big, big part of what's driving this level of new interest, new creativity to the downtown market. So with that, I'll let Autumn say her little.
Will has kind of touched on some broader issues, and I hope that he kind of continues to bring us back to those broader issues as I focus on some of the projects that we're doing in and around the downtown area. From our perspective in the local government and the implementation of the sales tax funded projects, those are sometimes they're the catalysts that help to generate the private sector investment in our area around downtown. And so today we have a lot of examples of how that's been successful and where growth continues to happen, but we're also going to give some presentation on where our next public sector investments are going to be that'll help to generate that investment on the private sector. So that's going to start. Blueprint is one division of the Department of Place. Ben Pengree, as most of you probably know Ben, maybe not everybody, but most of you know Ben. He's the only employee of the Department of Place, but he's my boss. And under Place is Blueprint, Infrastructure, which is I do, Economic Vitality, which is also funded by our penny sales tax beginning in 2020, and then the Planning Department, which has been in place, a joint agency since I think the late 60s. We like to kind of start with this slide because it gives you a perspective on how people view our community, whether you live here or you're from outside of here. Some of the things that you may not know, we're a silver level bicycle friendly community. That's a recent award. That's pretty exciting. It really shows our investment in our multi-use trails and our bicycle infrastructure that we've made over the last 20 years coming to fruition. Also, most recently, we got listed in Southern Living's top 10 cities. Was it like one ahead of Austin?
We were 9 Austin.
I mean, that's pretty awesome.
It is. I mean, that's a testament to what people see outside of our community. A lot of times, those of us who live here and have lived here a long time, we tend to see Tallahassee a certain way, very parochial, and we don't think things are changing the way we want them to or fast enough. But I can tell you, having worked in Austin and Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, some of these places, they look at us differently than we look at ourselves. And it's important to understand that, all right? And so we put this slide up here because other folks do think of us a little bit differently. And we need to peacock up a little bit and think about ourselves the same way. We are starting to make an impact on the way others view us as a place to come and do business. That's relevant.
Mm-hmm. So Blueprint is responsible for, we think of Blueprint as building roads, building parks, maybe bicycle infrastructure or regional stormwater facilities. But looking forward into the next 20 years of implementing these sales tax projects, I think that the lens that we need to look through is about creating great public spaces. And I think that we've shown that investing in creating great public spaces is what actually drives and makes that connection to private sector investment. And it's that kind of that magic sweet spot of how do you get people to stay after they leave college to live and start a business in Tallahassee and then ultimately maybe raise a family if that's what they choose to do. Creating these placemaking districts, which is a key part of the Blueprint 2020 sales tax program, is going to help to capture that magic in Tallahassee and grow it and create more private sector investment. One of my phrases is public spaces to great places to smiling faces. And I really believe that, and I think that as we continue to implement the sales tax projects, we're going to be creating more of those awesome public spaces that maybe we don't necessarily think of as being places for people to meet, create a new sense of community, have diverse interactions, and then as a result, we're a little bit stronger as a community, a little bit more resilient to economic pressures and maybe natural disasters.
It's how you do it, though. It's the execution that's key, right? Government can spend money on places, but if it's not done in a way that's going to attract people, it's basically irrelevant in terms of how it attracts private capital to respond to the people. Because that's what the market is looking for. They want real places that aren't faux. I mean, look, I was with St. Joe for years. I was involved in Southwood. The town center out there, it was faux. It was fake. I mean, it was lousy execution. Now they're looking at redoing it. They're actually coming and looking at College Town to take some of those ideas and try to implement them out there in a way that works. So what we're doing here and what Autumn's team is doing is sort of listening to the private sector. Those projects were approved by the taxpayers. We all want to see them happen. But how you execute those projects is key to attracting private capital and private opportunity and entrepreneurs to the market. And so far, we've been very successful with that.
Exactly. Investment is great, and we're so fortunate here to have this extra sales tax revenue to be able to do this above and beyond with our blueprint projects. That maybe a community that didn't have this extra revenue, they may not be able to do something like build Cascades Park and add an amphitheater there. But that's great because we can build the gray or we can build the green, but we can't do it alone. We need the people, we need the community, we need the neighborhoods, and this presentation is really about the private sector investment that we also need to. Our poster child for catalytic development is Cascades Park. Here's the old brownfield. Next slide. And here's Cascades Park now today. You can see it rings our downtown. It's really only a stone's throw. The stormwater system that's in Cascades Park actually treats the runoff that's in downtown that was previously untreated, and makes great entertainment districts, but it's also has a recreational component to it and is... Yeah, I mean,
Sean has presented this to your group, I guess it was a month or two ago. This is the mixed-use project there. I helped them with this, helped put this deal together. Again, NAP, North American Properties, has now got an office here. I believe he shared that with you. They're a major development company. Their principal owns half the Cincinnati Reds. They've got a fleet of Lear jets. They don't have to be here. They've got opportunities all over the place. They're here because, and I believe Sean shared this with you, they see a real opportunity in a sort of secondary, tertiary market that others aren't seeing. But clearly, they wouldn't be here if not for Gain Street to begin with, and we're going to get to that in a minute. That started it because, honestly, student housing was sort of low-hanging fruit. It was easier to get in there and execute against that market demand. But from that now, we're maturing. And we're reaching the next phase or stage of our downtown development, which goes beyond student mixed-use development. It goes into additional housing for people that are adults, anything other than a student, basically, as well as more adult restaurants, entertainment, things of that nature. So I think this is a great testament to a public investment in our community. Investment is key because they're going to reap hundreds of millions of dollars return for what this cost our community through the blueprint fund.
Well, it's a $33 million Cascades Park for a $350 million.
That's one project. There's more behind the curtain that we can't talk about right now, but if this goes like we hope it does, this is not a standalone. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and in fact, this next series of slides kind of shows us how go ahead, Susan, the public investments like Franklin Boulevard, let's look again, beautiful project, one of my favorites for sure, has helped to smaller investments like, I don't remember what these are called, but this is that little development on Franklin near the Florida Bar. They just recently started marketing it. I can't remember. They're single-family homes. But,
yeah, they're nice.
They're
Lewis and
lovely.
Whitlock are the architects.
Yeah.
Again, that was a flooding problem down there. Okay?
Franklin Point? Not Franklin Point, is it? Franklin Point?
Franklin Point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look very nice. I mean, I've looked at
I
it.
haven't seen them.
Anyway, it's a nice new product offering, and again, it just demonstrates what's happening in our market. Because again, this is not the traditional stick-built townhouse kind of product that we've seen in Tallahassee over and over again. This is a developer that believes there's a market for a higher quality construction and a different demographic that now wants to be in downtown Tallahassee. People that are a little older, perhaps, or this product is probably going to be in the $500,000 to $1 million price point, not the $250, $300, $350 price point. To me, that's significant. We haven't seen that in years and years and years. So again, it's a testament to what's happening in Tallahassee, and it's a testament to a response in public investment in certain segments of Tallahassee.
So this is actually the Lowe's Hotel or Washington Square development, which is right next door to our office, but it's only, 2 blocks up from Franklin Boulevard. And this is right in our downtown. This is on the old Oswald McMullen site on Calhoun Street.
Yeah.
I mean, Lowe's Hotel is one of those things that, hey, we didn't get the Cheesecake Factory. Fine, we'll take the Lowe's.
Well, and again, this is not a project that is in direct response to Franklin Boulevard stormwater improvements, okay? It's not. But what it is in response to is the Cascades, College Town, the Arena District, all the other things that have been nurtured by these public investments and have popped up now give us critical mass and give us those other things you saw earlier, where all of a sudden we're ranked 9th by Southern Living, ahead of Austin, Texas. These guys come in from the Northeast and go, we think we can make this work. So it's that cumulative effect of the onesies and twosies that somehow give you the home run opportunity in downtown Tallahassee. This is going to be a great flag for our city, and hopefully Lowe's will do very, very well at this location. Yes, sir.
Before I forget, the Washington Square Development guys will be here for this meeting in May. So they're going to come in and talk about their project, so shameless plug for downtown business.
Don't give us any more information, you're spoiling it.
Well, I'm going to get to the Arena District in a minute. He'll want to hear that part of it.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
All right, so this is the pre-Gain Street investment. As you guys, I'm sure many of you remember this if you've been in Tallahassee.
The haunted house.
Yeah. And what we've got here is the roundabout at Woodward, where the city made the public investment to do the spear point there, which really helps to define the entrance to the Gain Street corridor. Here we had, and really, you guys may remember some of the history on Gain Street, but there was a lot of planning that went into that to be able to create the change that was needed for that corridor. It required some creative new zoning districts specific to just Gain Street itself, design guidelines that were focused on the pedestrian first infrastructure that was so important, that we really learned from and are able to put that knowledge into our future projects.
Yeah, on this is College Town, right? I've been very, very, very involved in College Town. I never thought I would be running bars, but somehow I find myself running bars in student housing. It's not a gig I would advise anybody to want to get into, but we do what we do. This, very quickly, so Andy Miller, he's the chairman of the Seminole Boosters, owned 25 acres around the stadium. They use 6 weekends a year for game day parking. 25 acres around the stadium is worth $25 million. 6 weekends a year for game day parking. There had to be something better. So he brought me in to help figure out how to master develop and plan this. If not for the Gain Street redevelopment and all the things and the efforts that were going on over there, we would have started this whole master development process totally differently. All right, we felt like because of that, we could play off of that and create a main street on Madison Street, which would be even more pedestrian friendly because doesn't have the traffic flow that Gaines does, and conveniently we own both sides of the streets for several blocks, so that kind of played into it as well. But we now have $150 million in mixed use right there. I've got an Indigo that's under construction. An Indigo Hotel is a boutique hotel. They're very difficult to convince those folks, IHG out of Atlanta, to drop an Indigo flag in a market like Tallahassee. It took me 2.5 years of going back and forth to Atlanta. They've signed up and it's under construction, all right? It's going to be located just adjacent to that parking garage, and then there's another acre in front of it, plus or minus, maybe not an acre. We're going to leave as green space park for now. So sitting out on the veranda of the Indigo, you'll be looking across the little park, across the big park, what we call the Central Park, and then onto the stadium. Eventually, we will develop that with some sort of restaurant use, we think. We're looking for the right tenant. We don't have to do it now. We've been extremely selective in how we have located tenants in College Town. We could have very easily put Subway, Kinko's, Jimmy John's, all those folks, but then you're just another strip center. Nobody's going to drive past 3 of those to get to you. So we went out and handpicked operators from New York, Gainesville, Athens, Georgia, Madison, Wisconsin, that understood college markets, and then hopefully we found some that understood government and college markets. And so we've put those in, and you see that. Then we went to the best of the best in Tallahassee, okay, Massa. That took 3 years to get Massa convinced to come down to that market. They're killing it. They're doing extremely well, and we're proud of them. Koosh, it's got a different clientele, you know. It's not where you want to go if you want a salad necessarily, but if you want comfort food, go to Koosh, right? Same thing. I'd go out to this restaurant and sit down and talk to him at the bar for an hour about come down, come down, come down. We got Koosh. It's all about how you put the right hoteliers, the right hospitality people, the right retailers in your market, then it feels real. And people will drive from Midtown to go to College Town. And certainly when people come into town and they stay at this fabulous Hampton, they will go to College Town. And I helped put this Hampton deal together too, by the way. So I actually stayed here during the hurricane. It was awesome.
And from our stats perspective, with Cascades Park, we saw that $33 million public investment, and then a $350 million economic impact. And the NAP project, I think, is valued at $150 million investment from NAP. And here on Gain Street, we haven't done an economic impact on Gain Street. I imagine the number is huge, but $31 million, $32 million public investment in the infrastructure on Gain Street, and $400 million either completed or under construction, with another $100 million in the pipeline. So $500 million private sector investment that I think we could say would not have occurred had it not been for the public infrastructure.
I mean, if you look at it from
Well, could you delineate between, because now when you talk about Cascade Park, that is a tax dollar investment.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people know this, but the 31.7 million, explain how that revenue, or that money was invested. You know, where those funds came from. Because everybody thinks that the government wrote a $31 million check to make this happen.
no, we got it from you.
Thank you. I want to thank how it's like today, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean,
You didn't bring the check.
this was being set up. Is it Blueprint money that funded that there? Or was it
No, there's some
No, this is
blueprint
CRA
money
money.
that came
A lot of
through
CRA
the
money.
but
city,
not full 30.
but it wasn't a
Okay.
blueprint project.
Right. There was CRA was involved to a certain extent. CRA spent their funds, and it was probably, I don't know, I could get the exact numbers, but call it 10 or 15% of that on streetscape. The city was the one who spent most of their money on the actual roadway improvements. And we spent 10 years looking at this. At one point, they talked about doing the Champs-Élysées, but they're going to blow everything out, make it 6 lanes, major thoroughfare through there.
So 31 is for the Gain Street project?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly. And I'm telling you, had it not been for that, and the fact that the CRA was down there investing these monies, making it pedestrian friendly, we would not have approached the redevelopment the same way that we did.
Well, explain how CRA money entered in this project.
Well, number one, in several ways.
It's future revenues.
So the whole thing for us, when we were branding College Town, we start with female friendly. Everything we do has to reinforce the brand of being female friendly. FSU's 50% female, and fathers, mothers, parents, when they sign a lease, if it's for the son, they don't even look at the specs. If it's for the daughter, they're in there with their white gloves on. Okay, I've seen it. We sit in the leasing office, we watch. And I have my own experience. When my dad, he said, if you want to go to college, go for it. When my sister went, she had a credit card she never saw the bill to. She attended 3 different universities. It's different when it's baby girl versus oldest son. I can assure you of that. But if you do it female friendly, everything's well lit, it's clean, it's safe, okay, it feels good, then it will be economically more viable because the parents who have the money will sign the leases. The CRA came in, they created a physical environment on the street that reinforced everything we were trying to do inside the walls of our development. And then secondarily, on the very first phase of College Town, I mean, it was tough to get a lender to buy into phase 1 in the middle of a bunch of old dilapidated warehouses. I mean, the haunted house you saw earlier was still there. Okay, the Duraprint was Duraprint, not Urban Outfitters. All right, it was pretty chaotic down there. So we went to the CRA and said, look, we've got an equity gap. The boosters are going to put up, $5, $6, $7 million, but it's a $35 million project. We need a little bit of a mezzanine kind of a number here, and they agreed to a $2.5 million. You pay your taxes. I think Sean expressed this too. It's not like you get a check, but when you pay your taxes, and this property was generating no money because it's all FSU owned, put it on the tax roll, you get a percentage of that back for 10 years, and over the 10 years, we'll collect $2.5 million. That helped ease the pain. We also did
That's
new
the main
marketing.
thing, the funding mechanism is all future revenues.
It's all future revenues that they didn't have anyway.
Yeah.
So even after they gave us a portion of it back, they still were making 3 times, well, that's infinite because we're getting it.
So the idea with the CRA is that you have a base year that you start out. So say, parcel A collects, $1 million worth of taxes or something like that. And then you have, that's your base year. So the property taxes is, the CRA doesn't get any money on the base year. But then as the property value grows, the CRA gets that incremental growth above that $1 million.
Right.
So when you've got a property that's maybe not generating any real property tax because there's not any value to the land, and then you put that public investment in and you see the private investment follow, then the property taxes continue to grow. So the CRA then gets that money back, the incremental increase over the base year, that they can then reinvest back in the community development area.
And
or the
eventually the
district.
CRA sunsets and all the money goes to the school board, the city, the county, and all the folks that are paying the things that we need in our community, yes.
So is Madison booster land and Gaines like city, or how's that?
I'm sorry?
Is Madison like boosters and then Gaines is the city, or like, where's the differentiation there?
Well, no, I mean, it's all city property, but we did the improvements on Madison. We actually, and this was another thing the city did, which I tip of the cap, and we lease all of the parking on Madison that the city owns from the city, and we run it. Because the city shuts down at 5 or 6 o'clock, I can't remember. The students are very smart. As soon as the clicker stops, they pull in and they park and they stay there, which killed our restaurants because people couldn't park to go to the restaurants. This is before we had the garage as well. So now we manage it, and so they can't do that any longer. But the city, it's the first time they've ever done it. It was a pilot program. They understood the argument. They said, all right, we hear you. We're going to try it. And so far it's worked out really well. We hope to renew that lease later this year, but all indications are that we're going to do that. But that part of Madison has really been on the private sector to spend those monies, totally on the private sector to spend those monies. There's not a CRA dollar or a government dollar involved up there. We're burying power lines, mostly on our own nickel. We get a little bit of help, but not much.
Is Thompson gonna calm down, or are you gonna take over the rest of the street yet, a little man?
Matt? No comment. Matt does a great job.
All right, so one of the things that is exciting about the Gaines Street and the College Town area is that you think of it as being a student area, and that is, it is the case, but it's also the case that we have multi-generational activity going on down there. And really one of the first things to come out with supporting this kind of young professional was the All Saints District.
This is just another view of College Town, and you know, you see it lit up, but it's not just College Town. NA North American Property, Sean, who was in here before, he came to Tallahassee looking at a whole different project. He was actually looking at Falls Chase. And that deal didn't work out, but his land use attorney said, you need to talk to Will Butler. He's down there doing some stuff down there in College Town or Gaines Street that you might be interested in. I met Sean, we started talking, and 4 months later, he had, you know, the block, and that we had all these properties locked up because he saw an opportunity to come in and transform an area and create scale. So he had, I'll tell you one thing about Sean McIntyre, he's got vision and energy. He's very organized and he can get it done. But now we show this picture to folks and we get indigo. Okay, so I said the market is changing. You start with the low-hanging fruit to get enough people down there to make it viable for other uses like the indigo, which plays into the Arena District redevelopment I'm talking about, which plays into the College of Business at Florida State, relocating from the center of campus to Gaines Street. Okay, that's 200,000 square feet and 2,200 students and/or faculty. They're going to be down on Gaines Street in 5 or 6 years. All right, I don't know that they would have done that had we not started making these kinds of changes. Really, to me, this is part of downtown Tallahassee. It's just a different borough in what is now a greater downtown Tallahassee, and that's the way I talk to people when I travel. All right, and so is Cascades. All right, and so is Park Avenue or College Avenue. You know, and then you still got everything on top of the hill, but I think this creates a more interesting story for people to think about and get their arms around, and then think about either building a project or relocating a business or staying in Tallahassee, because now it's a more interesting place to live and work and play. And that should affect all of us if you got any kind of business venture, candidly, anywhere in Tallahassee, downtown or otherwise.
Okay, go ahead. Long-awaited grocery store.
This is another one, Publix. My experience is sort of master community development, and when you start developing a community, you know you have to have certain elements to make it long-term viable. All right, grocery and basic services and things of that nature are important, but no grocery is going to go in if there's not enough people there to support the viability of the grocery store. Well, we'd been talking to Publix, which is, you know, in our part of the world, probably preeminent grocery store chain going. They're very difficult to get them to go anywhere. They go where they want to go, when they want to go, and how they want to do it. But again, once we demonstrated we had enough critical mass, we got them to think about, hey, this is a new market. Do you have something that might be different? I wasn't thinking green-wise, but I know they have a 22,000 square foot and a 28,000 square foot, in addition to their 42, and then their 68 super Publix like the one up at Killearn and I-10. This was their first green-wise prototype. I understand they've got several more now under construction and on the way. This was the very first one, and we got it here in Tallahassee. Urban design, urban development. They offer different products. They offer different kinds of delivery services and things that the regular Publix don't. We got the very first one in Tallahassee. Now, this is Publix. This isn't some Piggly Wiggly concept that came up. I mean, this was critical.
What's wrong with Piggly?
Nothing wrong with the pig, but this ain't the pig.
Hey, I grew up with a pig. I grew up with a pig.
I did too.
Oh my God.
That's why I can say it. You
Yeah,
know?
that's right.
But this validates our market, guys. This validates Tallahassee, and it's important. So that's why I stress them coming here. I think it's a major testament to everything we got going on.
And Will and I took a group from ULI, Jacksonville, Gainesville last week on a Gaines Street College Town tour, and I have to admit they were pretty interested in the Greenwise.
Yeah,
I mean, they did little side trips just to go
Yes.
see it.
These are real estate professionals, whether they're developers, planners, engineers, whatever, and they were. I mean, I've gotten 3 calls to go to Gainesville, to go to Jacksonville, to work on different stuff. So I know Autumn has as well. They couldn't believe what was going on in Tallahassee, and why can't this happen in Gainesville? I said, "You gotta fix the university, I guess."
That's true.
And we had that. We were going back and forth with that too during the whole day. It was fun. This is a rendering of the Indigo. Okay, the one I told you about earlier. Again, this is not your standard state hotel. Okay, the rate, the ADRs, the room rates, and all that stuff are going to be different here than what we have in most of the hotel product in Tallahassee. Again, for me, it does 2 things. It validates the market. When other folks, corporate or otherwise, see the Indigo flag, they go, "There's some there there. All right, we're going to come take a look. There's some there there." Second, and equally important to me, is it brings a different demographic and a different psychographic to our market. Right now, those restaurants that are all down in the Gay Street area are predominantly relying on students to survive. This is going to bring a totally different vibe and a totally different buyer into their doors where they can serve different products that might make those of us want to go there and eat a little bit more, because it's not just pizza and nachos. Or burgers, right, exactly. So, that's the kind of impact these kinds of users have, these kinds of users have on our market. They transcend one block and one flag and one deal. They continue to increase the velocity of change in a market, and they're very important in my world.
Okay, so let's go 1 block south and talk a little bit about some of the infrastructure that's occurred there. This is the intersection with FAMU Way and Railroad Avenue. Yes. So this is the city of Tallahassee did the road project, and Blueprint did the Capitol Cascades Trail, the undergrounding of that ditch, which was a major divide in our community for decades, and really helps to create these public spaces like Lake Anita Plaza. Go again. At night at Lake Anita Plaza, which is a great place to just sit and watch the sunset again, and the park space. One of the things that's really, I think the most interesting thing about FAMU Way and Cascades Trail is the fact that it is squeezed between the 2 universities. 42,000 students at FSU, 14,000 students at Florida A&M University, and a public corridor with public space and green space between the 2 of those, in places like Hampton, where we are today, actually, where you're probably seeing. I'd be interested to hear about, what the people that come in for the universities. Are they FSU families? Are they FAMU? Are they both?
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely both.
yeah, absolutely. Some of the stories that we've heard from alumni from FAMU is that they would come in on the rail line here at the Amtrak station and then walk up that hill to the university, and that being their first introduction to living in a community they've never been before, on the cusp of an education, and kind of the world is wide open for people making that trek up the hill, which I think is really moving. But these public spaces between FSU and FAMU, we really think, while they may be kind of small or linear, they are the perfect places for cultivating that diverse relationship between those students, where when you have people from different backgrounds able to talk and meet in a safe and comfortable space, sometimes we call it a third place, you can actually really create a better and stronger community. And I think also start to get some of that economic development side of it too. The creation, talking about the background and the education that people are receiving from the different universities, and then harnessing that varied interest and just being able to have a space where you can have that collaboration. And I think that this Cascades Trail segment is really a great place for that.
So from the private sector, okay, sometimes it sounds very planner-esque, but that's not planner-esque. That's real. You're seeing this building, Stephen Wendell and his dad, Charlie, who I'm working with and actually partnering with on some stuff, came to Tallahassee 2 or 3 years ago, and they said, all right, we love what you got going on in College Town. Find me a site there by College Town. Well, there wasn't a site by College Town. And I wrote them over here, and they were like, whoa, 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 this is literally the other side of the tracks, okay? And we don't want to be, I said, wait a minute, just, and I started showing prior articulations that were not yet even complete. And I said, now think about it, you know, it's 12,000, 40, and you're right here, the Arena District, and this is going to be a cool connector. This is not going to look this way 5 years from now. We're in a Hampton Inn in Suites today, a very nice one, okay? And we've got a Hyatt we're just about to break ground on. Where's Adam?
He left, right?
Okay. We got a Hyatt that we bought from Adam in front of Railroad Square that we spent months talking to the tenants in Railroad Square about how we're going to work with all of those artists to embrace them in this hotel. Not only in terms of use, but in terms of galleries that they can exhibit some of their art and things. We want it to be a place where we embrace them, and candidly, our residents who stay there, the first thing they're going to want to do after they're done with business is walk down to Railroad Square and see what's going on. So we built we're going to build a freestanding retail building adjacent to the hotel.
This is it right here.
Yeah, there's the Hyatt House. Okay, that's not necessarily the exact finished art. That was an early rendering. We've tweaked it considerably. I mean, the interior elements are the same, but we're trying to give it an edgier, using more metals and things like that were consistent with what we heard from the Railroad Square artists. To give it, you know, it's tough because you got to hire a corporate franchise approval kind of group that thinks everything needs to look the same where you drop it in versus what we really want to see here. But we convinced them that by doing it the way we thought it should be done, the performance would be better. And they get fees off performance, so they eventually agreed to that. And then, I don't know if we have the freestanding retail building, but we're going to do it over here where we're going to allow for those tenants to show their space. That's not an economically viable improvement. That was done to embrace Railroad Square and to continue to try and enhance the corridor between FSU, old downtown, into new downtown, over to FAMU. So you got to think about the execution every little step of the way if you want to get the end result, the fabric to look like it needs to look like and be successful.
So this is the bridge that takes you from Cascades Park over to Cascades Trail this is South Monroe. And I just wanted to highlight some of this activity that's occurring on South Monroe. And these are examples of stuff that's already well on its way. I mean, this is the Happy Motoring, which you guys know now you can go. They've got the Tally Mac Shack now actually has like a little retail facility there, which is awesome, macaroni and cheese. But nonetheless, there's a lot of investment that's occurring in that area, and there's definitely more to come. Blueprint has a project in this area called the South Monroe-South Adams Corridor Placemaking Project, which is really to enhance the pedestrian interface between the vehicles and the shops. But the planning department tracks the amount of inquiries that they get around the community. So it could be a property owner, it could be a developer, it could be a realtor, and they come in and they say, hey, I'm looking at this piece of property, I just want to see what I can do with it, what kind of local incentives might there be, or what are any special development regulations that might be in place. And they track where those inquiries are geographically. And the hottest spot in our community is in this Cascades Trail, Gang Street, South Monroe corridor, and particularly the South Monroe corridor right now. So here's the new proof, which is already creating a bit of a parking calamity down there. So we're trying to.
They had a problem finding a decent contractor, so they had to settle.
Who built that thing?
Why are you laughing so hard, Bill?
Well, we finally went.
Oliver Sperry did a fabulous job. If you haven't been down there to look at that project, you should, because it rocks. It's really cool. Y'all did a great job, and it really is a great addition, in my mind, to Tallahassee.
Oh, I was there on Sunday. It was awesome.
Cool.
Okay, and this is across the street, Cascades Gardens. This is actually formerly 2 blocks, but there's proof, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the pedestrian bridge is literally right there because that's that Orion Motorsports. So these are all residential, I think, with some retail in the front. And then this is the phase that was just constructed of FAMU Way and Cascades Trail. So FAMU Way and Cascades Trail will go all the way out to Lake Bradford Road, and that'll be complete within the next 2 years. In fact, the bids just came in for completing the construction of that area. There's going to be a trailhead near where the St. Mark's Trail comes in, and a beautiful stormwater facility with continuing that decorative light show at night. Okay.
Well, since we're running out of time, we're
Yeah, I
going
was
to skip
gonna
the
say.
arena district, and we're going to kind of.
Okay.
No.
All right, so the arena district. Well, in my estimation, the arena district can be geographically defined, generally speaking, from Gain Street up to Jefferson, and then over to where Turnbull currently is. It's not a large area, but it's going to be heavily influenced by what Florida State does. And the private sector is going to respond to that as well. One of the key elements here is the College of Business, which I mentioned before, Legacy Hall, relocating from the center, traditionally the center of FSU's campus, over to Gain Street. One of the things that I think, first of all, it's it's a couple 100,000 square feet. You're going to have a couple thousand people that are going to be there pretty much 18 hours a day, or at least 15 hours a day. It's going to give a whole different energy to that end of Gain Street, which is right in between Cascades and College Town and the traditional downtown. When we talked about this, and I was asked to engage in this discussion, originally there was a lot of folks at FSU that thought that the front door to this building should face back towards Westcott. That's where the main campus is, and they were worried the students were asking them to move a little too far, et cetera, et cetera. I argued, and ultimately some others felt the same way, that I'm a College of Business graduate, and as a business person, I like the interaction with the outside world and the downtown environment, and we've got the law school to the north flanking the arena district, and now we're going to put the College of Business. It's going to turn its back on greater downtown Tallahassee. I said, that's wrong. That's wrong. We should embrace this interface and this interaction in a way that helps us, helps our students, helps businesses engage with the students. We can still have, obviously, portals going back the other way, and we will. But I think that John Thrasher and some others felt like that was a good theme for where we wanted to go with this. And I think that's interesting that, again, you see the park that's there now. Our front door is going to face the park. It's going to face the Department of Education. It's going to face what is historically downtown Tallahassee. I think it says all the right things about what we're trying to do between Florida State and our local community. For too long, we've been two 800-pound gorillas, local government and FSU, and throwing bananas at each other. And when we work together and then throw in the 400-pound business gorilla, the private sector, we can get a lot of things done. And that's what that has resulted in. And then behind that, this is a current, this is an artist rendering of what may happen here, but we plan to partner up with a private developer for part of this mixed-use development to assist us with a, call it 80,000-ish square foot conference center. Currently, we've got Turnbull, which is right here, but it's only about 40,000. You've got the expo space in the bottom of Tucker, but that's really expo space. And we've done a ton of studies in this community that indicate if we had a real conference facility that we could do a lot of business here, which is going to drive a lot of traffic. Do we expect to get the business that's going to Orlando? No, we do not. We don't expect a lot of the big annual conventions, but we do think with all the associations we have here, with all the things that Florida State does, we'll get a lot of quarterlies. A lot of folks want to come to Tallahassee to be seen with their legislatures and, or more importantly, staff that inform those legislators. So we think we can do a pretty good business. Again, we're going to have a killer interior plaza. It's going to be set up to where it speaks really well at night as well as during the day. We're going to have a full-service hotel. We don't know the exact number of rooms yet, probably close to 300 rooms. That's where I talk about the Lowe's. It's going to be interesting to see the Lowe's as a full-service hotel. We're going to have a full-service hotel connected to Turnbull and the conference center. I'm not sure Tallahassee's ready for 600 rooms full service, but I hope we are, and I guess we'll find out. Currently, and this is a big question because I think a lot of people have seen this, and the only reason that Warren Emo is here is wants to know what's going on. We are in the process. So first of all, through Blueprint and Autumn and her team's really hard work, we were able to convince, and it didn't take a lot of convincing, but it did take a lot of work to get the facts that people could be informed to make this decision, to go ahead that if this proved feasible, vis-a-vis an updated study, that we would bond the Blueprint money. So therefore we could fund this now being in the next 12, 24, 36 months, and get going so that the College of Business and the hotel and the conference center could all be master planned and under construction at one time. Then when you're done, you've got College of Business. I mean, it all works, as opposed to if you just do the conference center and then you spend another 12 months doing a hotel, and then 12 months after that you start a college of business. It looks like a construction zone forever. It really puts the conference center under stress. So we were working to do that. We got that done, subject to an HVS study. That's ongoing as we speak. I got the update yesterday. We're very close to getting the conference part of that study done.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all both. It's been a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Wow, tremendous.